Bobby and I got up earlier than everyone else, and we decided to go to Johnny Rockets for breakfast when they opened. I ordered the works with a side order of bacon, and it was awesome. I'm not sure where Bran, Colt, and Wayne ate, but Mom LaFonda and Beretta ate at the Windjammer. When we got back to the room, this was the view we had from our balcony. Absolutely gorgeous.
So we are going to try to make our way to the Queen's Staircase in Fort Fincastle. The lady right outside security there said it's only about 10 minutes. Party rum. Hi, beautiful horse. Hi, beautiful horse.
Okay, I admit I failed miserably at being the family tour guide. I had thought that the last time that we walked to the Queen's Staircase there was a sign that showed you where to turn, and we never did see a sign. FYI, if it is still there, I think you turn just past the Chinese restaurant. We could see the water tower from where we were, but I was convinced that there was a sign that showed you where to turn, and I never did see a sign. We walked way past the place where we should have turned. There was a taxi driver that convinced us to let him drive us to Fort Fincastle, which made it much easier on us because we were able to walk down the steps on the staircase instead of having to walk up them. We were a bit skittish of getting in a vehicle with a random taxi cab driver, but he said there was no way he could take on all 8 of us if he did decide to do something. He only charged us $20. I still think we could have walked it, but walking is my thing. Not everyone in the family enjoys a good hike like I do. Woohoo! We finally made it to Fort Fincastle. This fort is named after the British captain Lord Dunmore, also known as Viscount Fincastle. He had it built in the shape of a boat or a ship. It was built in 1793, but 3 years after he had it built in 1796, he was removed from his position and returned to England. I believe it was built with the limestone that was cut out of the stones from the Queen's Staircase. He had it built in fear of a French invasion. The entry fee is $1.08 in U.S. currency. If not using exact change, you may not get American currency back.
Is it okay if they're still all attached? She's already went in. I already gave her her ticket. Oh, are you waving at your girlfriend?
Bretta is waving at the vendor he bought his necklace from. He was so excited because she gave him half off on the necklace and agreed to marry him in 10 years. Fort Fincastle was armed with 7 cannons. They were never fired during battle. The original ones were made out of bronze and then eventually replaced with iron ones. There was no invasion, and Fort Fincastle never saw battle. Here there are 3 rooms. The first room on the right is the guard room. The middle room is the heating room or furnace room. And the third door, which is the one on the left, is where they stored the guns and ammunition. The structure of the area was a lot different back when the fort was built. I believe that the water came all the way up to where Bay Street currently is, so the fort was a lot closer to the water and probably looked more like it was a ship at sea. was the guard room. It was initially meant to be a prison, but there were no prisoners, so the soldiers would use it to take a rest during their shift. There were typically 50 soldiers that would work in 12-hour shifts.
Oh, feel that breeze coming through there? Oh, that's wonderful. I guess I'm hogging it all. I'll move so you can feel it.
The holes in the wall were used for ventilation, and believe it or not, as hot as it gets in Nassau, the air that was coming through those holes was quite cool. The room in the middle was the heating room, or the furnace, where they would heat the cannonballs, also known as hot shot. This is the area where they stored the guns and ammunition. As you go up the steps to the upper level, you can look out over the ocean and get awesome views of the cruise ship. That is just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely gorgeous. Now, Bobby, I'm pretty sure that you and Garen were up here. Key West.
I think there used to be a flagpole up in this area that was used to signal the other two forts, Fort Montague and Fort Charlotte. But from the ocean, it made it look like Fort Fincastle was an actual ship.
Or down the.
It's amazing how good of a view you get of the cruise port from top of Fort Fincastle. We were on Oasis of the Seas, that's the big one in the back. There's a huge difference in size between Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Seas and Carnival Ecstasy. 16 Fort Fincastle was also used as a lighthouse. This area is the highest area in Nassau. The water tower is about 216 feet above sea level, and the water tower itself is like 126 feet, and it holds 80 to 85,000 gallons of water. You can see the cruise ships in this area. And the folks at the little shops are not real pushy. And there's some bathrooms up in this area as well. Now we're off to the Queen's Staircase. Hope you've enjoyed. It's just a few paces from Fort Fincastle to the Queen's Staircase entrance. Welcome to the Queen's Staircase, also known as the 66 Steps.
Are we ready, guys?
In fear of an invasion, a direct access route was built to reach the fort in case of an attack or in need of an escape. It has been said that there would at all times be a fully stocked and manned ship waiting in the harbor in the event of a need for an escape.
The leaves are heart-shaped. Gorgeous.
The tunnels would have been sealed off, and the walls were hidden by the vegetation.
Sorry, it's shaky.
Locals say that around 600 slaves worked 14 to 20 hours per day building the escape route, and also heard that about 5,400 men were worked to death. And off to the left, you can see what may have been the underground tunnel and possibly catacombs of the slaves who died during the 16 years of construction. Years later, the actual steps to the staircase were hand-carved and dedicated to Queen Victoria, who had abolished slavery. Supposedly there is a step for each year she reigned, but there may be a bit of discrepancy in that. She reigned for 64 years, but there are only 65 steps, but still an interesting tidbit. The staircase is commonly referred to as the 66 steps, but only 65 steps are visible because the pathway was paved and the bottom step was buried under the asphalt. This is an absolutely beautiful place, but even more amazing is that slaves were only given a chisel and hammer to carve the passageway. They weren't able to use pickaxes or any modern conveniences. In researching about the Queen's Staircase, I have recognized that there has been some controversy as to the actual origins of the passageway. Some say the real reason was for expansion and creating a new access road to add a subdivision. It was initially started with slave labor, but when the Abolition Act was passed, they decided to carve the stairs rather than continue cutting through the hill. There is no entry fee to the Queen's Staircase, and usually there are guides walking around that's willing to give you information about the local history. And we discovered that there are bathrooms at the entrance of the canyon. I had never noticed them on previous trips to the Queen's Staircase. Well, it's time for us to walk back to the cruise ship.
Since we didn't get a walking video all the way up to the staircase, we'll do a walking video from the staircase.
I'm not sure if it was from a previous tour guide that we had or if I read somewhere, but the hospital is the location of where the barracks used to be for the soldiers. Somewhere along the way, my husband and nephew found a coffee shop that had free Wi-Fi if you purchased something there. All you had to do was hand them the device and they would punch the code in. That way you couldn't actually just give the code to other people in your group. My son Colt decided to hang out with the guys. We have no idea what all they did or what they were up to. At the time the ship set sail, we had still not seen hide nor hair of the guys, so I went to guest services and was told that everyone made it back on the ship, so maybe we will find them soon.